this is what I want to make today. I know this looks overwhelming and complicated, but I promise you this might actually be the easiest piece we've made yet. So let's go ahead and get into it. The place I started with this was with overlapping transparent squares. So far, anytime we've set the fill style, we've always set it to a solid color. But there's actually an optional fourth parameter to RGB called alpha, where you can specify the transparency of the color. So this is a highly transparent red. So an alpha of 0 means the color is fully transparent. An alpha of 1 means the color is fully opaque. It's a solid color. So this is fairly transparent. Let's do something like 0.3, a little more reasonable. And then let's draw some overlapping squares so we can see how the transparency looks. All right, so there's 2 squares that overlap. Now let's go ahead and do 3. There you go. So you can see where they overlap. The red is darker, and you can see the white background bleeding through because they're highly transparent squares. So that's transparency. The next thing I did was I wanted to fill up the full screen with these squares, not just have 3 overlapping ones. And the way we're going to do that is probably the most obvious thing is just place random squares on the screen in random places. So let's just start with doing 100 of them. So, yep, pick a random X and Y within the screen, and then a random size between 20 and 100. Maybe we'll use a normal distribution for that. Just seems like a little more natural that the squares are mostly the same size, but some of them are outliers. We'll do something like that. And then we can actually make them rectangles instead of squares, so pick different ones for the width and height. Cool. So 100 random squares, random size, random location on the screen. All of them the same transparent red that we looked at before. Nice. Not quite enough to fill up the screens. Let's go ahead and let's do 1,000 of them. There we go. And you can see that we have like a white border on the left and the right. So let's add some more padding here. Let's see if we can get rid of that. Okay, awesome. Maybe you can see some white is shining through here. So maybe let's do a little bit more. See if we can get more solid thing. Okay, and now this is just all red. This isn't like, you can't see the individual squares in the picture. And one reason for that is because they're all the same color. So if they're next to each other, you can't tell the difference between them. So one thing we can do is, instead of having them all be the same color, let's pick various shades of red. This is close to what I want, but this is just pure red. I also want some variations in the green and the blue values, but not that much. They're going to be basically 0, but just a little bit of difference. And let's do something like that for the red too. I don't want the red to be able to take on any value from 0 to 255. I want it just like maybe in the upper part of that range. Maybe something like, let's go from 80 to 255. We can tweak this later. And then we want this to have some alpha too. Let's go ahead and, what do we have done here? 0.3. Let's start with that. And again, we can tweak these based on how the picture looks. So instead of using the same fill style for all these squares, each time we draw a new one, we're going to make it a different color. Let's see what that looks like. Nice. Okay, I'm liking that. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. There's not a ton of differentiation there. You might want to like see what happens if we make these more opaque so they bleed into each other less. I think that's maybe too much. Let's drop back down. Actually, let's go a little lower to see the extreme case here. Yes, that's like quite fuzzy. You can even start seeing the white behind it. Let's see what 0.3 looks like something like that best. You can also play with to add more range for the red value there. You can see we get some darker reds in there. I think that's actually maybe too much. I like this value before. You can play around with how many of these squares there are. Didn't really seem to make much of a difference. Once you kind of cover up the screen, adding more maybe doesn't have much of an impact. But yeah, that's the picture. Go ahead and check out the code and start tweaking these values for yourself and creating a picture that you find aesthetically pleasing. See you next time.